Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Della Pena, and welcome back to Instructor's Legacy. We take the amazing experiences that instructors go through in their careers and then turn them into something special, creating real, relatable knowledge capsules. This way, the journey of each instructor turns into valuable lessons for other educators, ensuring their legacies continue to make a difference. Today's guest speaker comes from Cal Poly Pomona, who's also a senator for the Men of Color Action Network and also a director at Mount St. Antonio College. This person specializes in assisting formerly incarcerated folks with recovery. Now, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to stay updated with all our latest stories. And with that, let's get started. All right, everybody. My name is Michael Della Pena. Welcome to Instructor's Legacy. Today we have a special guest, Joe Louis Hernandez, who is an adjunct professor at Cal Poly Pomona. He's also a senator with the Men of Color Action Network. He's also a director at Mount St. Antonio College. Joe Louis specializes in assisting formerly incarcerated folks with recovery. And we're going to tap into the idea of helping folks with finding a new way of life. So Joe, welcome to Instructor's Legacy. Great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, I wanted to go ahead and jump right in, and I want to tell the folks, first off, how I met you, right? So I was scouring LinkedIn and I ran across your profile, and one of the things that was on there, and I'm going to read it out like here, it says, "You're about to witness the strength of street knowledge." You said you're formerly incarcerated, graduated student, and community college professional. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I use that. So for my master's program, I wrote a thesis that focused on the strengths of formerly incarcerated individuals and how they utilize that strength to navigate higher education. But I think more importantly, it's been my own experience, someone that's incarcerated, someone that kind of grew up on the strengths. There's this knowledge that we develop to be able to survive. And so that's why my tagline is, "You're about to witness the strength of street knowledge," because it's really what I'm tapping into as I navigate any avenue of even the way that I post, the way that I talk on LinkedIn. It's always a little mixture of like that street knowledge with that conventional knowledge in higher education. Like my Instagram tag is Streetwise Scholar, which is like a marriage of scholarship and that streetwise mentality, right? A scholar is somebody that's proficient and, conducts research, while someone that's streetwise is somebody that's able to navigate the streets and able to be successful. So when you marry those two, right, it creates a streetwise scholar, someone that creates knowledge, develops knowledge, right, and kind of distributes that knowledge, but also has that streetwise mentality and attitude that comes with it. So it is like encompassing, like LinkedIn is about your brand, right? And who you are and kind of developing that. So in essence, that's my brand, right? It's somebody that has the street knowledge that is going to bring it into wherever he goes. As as an adjunct professor, when I was teaching at Cal Poly Pomona and as a director, an administrator here at Mount San Antonio College, this street-wide scholarship or this street knowledge is always present and forefront. And that's why this is the tag with everything.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do want to hear a little bit more about what you focus on today, and then how you bring in the idea of teaching branding to your trainees or even to your staff. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do today?
So what I do, my 9 to 5, or more like 8 to 6, is I run a program called Rising Scholars at Mount San Antonio College. And so our goal and our focus is to help students that are coming home from prison, or anybody that has been incarcerated or impacted by the incarceration system at any point in their lives. So I really look at, right, like our most recent one today in the morning, we're working with the student that just came home from one of the juvenile halls in our county. And we could be working with somebody that is just getting out of juvenile hall, or somebody that's getting out of federal prison, or somebody that may have been incarcerated 20 years ago but maybe at this point in their life, they're looking for something different, or they're tired of what they were doing. So now they're looking for a new way. And this is what I think is a new way to live, is just a new path,
Hmm.
right? Something, it's like people that may have been, let's say I have a student who's a machinist, right? And he was successful in his career, but he kind of wanted to do more. So he came back to school, and now he's toying, he's one of my peer mentors. And so now he's toying with the idea of becoming a professor,
Nice.
right? So sometimes with that new way to live, or new way of life, is being exposed to things that you've never been exposed to, where he often comes into the office, and he's sharing to me that when the professor's teaching the other students how to set up the machines, he already knows how to do it all.
Nice.
He's now learning the technical aspects, and he's now learning like the book aspects of machining. So for him, he's always, I think one of the things that he said is like looking at that, is that exposure that he was here, and now he's thinking like, oh, what if I taught this class?
So you were talking about folks that once they get exposed to the idea of being able to even come and teach the
Mhm.
program, right?
Well, teach as you know, like the student was exposed to professors that
Mm-hmm.
have similar, work experience as him.
Mm-hmm.
So now, sometimes in certain trades and community colleges, the faculty member is someone that's been in that field,
Right. Okay.
is a part of that field. Like all our welding professors have been welders.
Okay.
So they're able to teach welding because they've experienced doing welding, but also may have an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree to do welding. But, like a student here at Mount Sac will come in to be a welder with the idea that they're just going to go out to the field and do welding, but then we talk to them about learning what the professor degrees they have, so that then later on in life they can come back and be a professor.
Okay.
So that's really what we're talking about, right? As the student is kind of talking about, he's exposed to much more than just now setting up machines and stuff like that.
Right. One of the things that I was listening for was how you set up that environment, right? The instructors, the faculty that are there uh, to to be the ones that actually do the motivating and shining the light on the opportunities. So, what techniques do you use, or maybe what are your filters when it comes to making sure staff mirror your ideal scenario or environment in the training room or classroom?
I think a lot of that has to do with like clear communication on my expectations,
Okay.
and what it is, and I think also modeling to the staff like the care and concern that I have for them is what I want for them to invest in each of our students. I think it becomes kind of in essence more of like, I can't tell you direct or techniques, but I tell you that, you know what, I think because I've shown the care, I've shown the concern, I've invested in my staff, right? I teach them, when they come to me, I keep an open door policy. So if they ever have any issues, I'm able to reinforce that the decision was right, or guide them and like, maybe you could do it this way, or you could do it that way. I think oftentimes I don't believe in chastising people, but like I do believe in letting them know the truth.
Good.
And I think I provide enough compassion when I am telling them the truth, that they feel vested in as a person.
Hmm.
So then that way, when they're out there with the students, they too now, right, invest in the students, and they too show that care, show that concern, show that work that they have for the students.
Got it. How do you ensure that not only do the trainees or the students get that one-on-one experience or that exposure to care about how they succeed, but how do you manage that load that an instructor has, especially if the classes are big? And I don't know the size of the class that you
We
have
don't
there.
we don't do classes. We do more like one-on-one
Oh,
interactions.
gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Like the class interactions are out of my jurisdiction and my experience, but with
Okay.
my staff, it's like one-on-one interactions, workshops, and stuff like that. I
Okay.
think it's more controlled environment, or more like of a, sometimes they'll be with like three or four students at the same time, but I think it becomes, I think the other thing that I do is when I do presentations, when I do anything, I bring my staff with me so they see my style,
Mm.
and then they can mimic and kind of adjust themselves, to like how I like code switch between when I'm talking to a student or when I'm talking to another professional, and they're able to see that, like, if I'm talking to a student and I'm seeing the student's not understanding what I'm kind of like putting down, then I switch to talk, a little more street, a little more use,
Right.
some analogies that they could understand, and that so then my staff is able to be like, okay, this is what he does, so that they're able to mimic what I do in their roles. But I also give them the freedom to make their role theirs.
Ah.
Because then now once they make that role theirs, they begin to feel in essence like vested, right? Like this is
Mhm.
theirs.
Mhm.
So, anything that happens wrong in the program is a direct reflection of them
Right.
instead of just a direct reflection of me.
Okay.
I think a lot of people sometimes in leadership positions have this authoritative kind of way of doing things that then they kind of cause students or people to just feel like this is I'm here while I'm here and that's it.
Mm. Mm. Okay. Okay. I like the approach that you mentioned about giving the staff and the instructors the ability to make the program theirs, right? Add a little bit of their own flavor. One of the things I want to hear in that approach is how do you ensure that the expected experience that you want the one-on-ones to occur, what those the experience that you want to happen, how do you measure that effectiveness if the instructors have their own flavor but and they're still aiming to meet your goals? How do you measure that success?
I think as a manager, at some point, right, I have to allow for something to look like, maybe not look like whatever I want.
Mm.
Right. But what I do make sure is that, like, did the student register for a class? Did the student know the information that they need to know? Did the student, like those are your variables that you can measure. But I think you also see the way students approach people is something that's not really coachable to create. Right. I think in the field that I work in,
Mhm.
and I think even you probably know this as somebody that does trainings, is you can't teach certain things, right? Like personal skills, right? You can't teach somebody to be a great teacher. You Right? Sometimes they either have it or they don't.
Mm.
And I think being able to understand, like, okay, some of them are going to be great, some of them aren't going to be great, but can they meet these markers? And then utilizing students as best, right? Like I got an employee, he doesn't like speaking in big crowds, right? So then at that point, do you then, you know, put him in front of big crowds where he's not going to be comfortable, or do you use him more like on one-on-ones where he feels comfortable, he's engaging, he
Right.
looks up, so as a manager you learn to do those kinds of things.
Hmm. I would imagine that the ratio where you have 1 to 3 individuals, correct?
Hmm.
Uh, I think that would enhance the experience for the student, right? Student or trainee. And I think that would, because that level or that ratio allows the instructor or trainer a little bit more intimacy, like they really get to know the student. They can tailor the teaching methods and the strategies around knowing the different personalities. It seems to be a very effective number or ratio. And so do you find, one, that you do get that positive feedback from the students? And two, maybe my other follow-up question would be, do you have enough mentors or staff to manage that ratio?
So I'll tell you from the onset, I don't have enough. Right now, we're pushing
Mm.
anywhere from like 290 to 300 students that we're working with.
Wow. Okay.
But I think it's being able to, every interaction to be a quality interaction is something that we can strive for, right? Are they paying attention to the person? Are they helping the person? If they make a mistake and they admit like, oh, we're sorry, I made that. That's a mistake I made. No, let's do it like this. So I think those ways is what's really going on. And I
Hmm.
think also what we also learned is though we may have 300 students, there's your students that are always here, and there's your students that come in and out,
Okay.
right? But you'll gain kind of a development of a following if you have someone that's always having like these quality interactions, where more of your students will want to come to your space to kind of get more support. As you look at that, that'll be a really great, as I look at that, that's a really great way of me understanding, right? Like, does the student come in just to say hi to a person?
Hmm.
Right, that shows me that they were touched in a way that made them feel like they belonged. So that often has a lot to happen here on campus, where the student will just stop by to say hi
That's
to
great.
one of my employees, and that shows me that there's a difference being made. We can't do have that. I think also learning, we're not going to have that with everybody,
Hmm.
right? But if I'm catching more and more of those people, then I'm understanding that it's going to be okay.
Okay. How does one start a journey towards that type of career path, right? What would be an advice that you would give to somebody that is looking to become one of your staff or even end up in your seat? What would be the advice to give?
I think it has to do one with education,
Okay.
really engaging students and really looking at like having the preparedness, right, of understanding that we work within higher education. So that's a key factor, right? Knowing, what kind of degrees can you get? Did you know that this, I think sometimes some people are surprised that sometimes I have to remind my students, that like this is my staff's job. Like they may come to hang out, they may come to chill, and it seems like a very open environment, but this is still a job where,
Mm.
right, you can't be hanging out with that person, just that person all the time, right? They still have a job to do.
All right.
So I think it's making that clear. I think but it's, understanding that this is the path and this is a job. So where do we develop our students best to give them, whatever they need? And I think it becomes, educationally, depending on what role you want, what degrees you need. If you need a bachelor's degree to be a full-time staff member, if you need a master's degree to be a counselor here at the community college, a master's degree to be a director, understanding like, okay, it's not just you got experience, you're doing this, okay, you could do this job, but there's knowledge and there's milestones that they all have to hit in the understanding of the work.
Got it. Thank you for that. So one of the things that I also do with trainees and students is to look 2 steps ahead of that career path.
Hmm.
And when I look at this type of program, what do you see as the evolution of this program? And maybe even just put it as what would you like to see differently, or how do you see it changing in a year or two? And I ask that just so that way, if I go down this road, to, what do I need to see it has a potential to pivot with the industry or even just with your program?
I think the program is so open and so it's really like just having the services that we need to direct the people to where we would want, because it wouldn't change. We're not focused on one career path.
Okay.
It is not like one type of training, right? We have such a breadth of degrees that we're really looking at all students, from, right, like welding to radiology tech,
Mm.
from a teacher to a drug and alcohol counselor, right? So there's just a lot
Wow.
that really isn't just one thing that they get, but it's a myriad of, we work from transferring to a 4-year university to working on your high school diploma. So it's not really like I can tell you, oh, it's gonna be all this, Michael.
Okay.
So if one of the degrees gives out or is removed, we're not gonna be able to handle it. No, it's all, like I think the core aspects of the onboarding,
Hmm.
our students connected to the program. Do students feel supported within the program? Through that support, our students, transmitted the information that they need to be successful everywhere, right? So those are my three key components, I guess, in getting to it, right? Like, is the student connected, supported, and informed? As long as those are throughout all the interactions, then it doesn't matter if that student is doing his high school diploma or transition, or if she's transferring to a 4-year university. As long as they have those three here, those will be the core aspects of what kind of we revolve around.
Got it. And I think even students coming into that program knowing that breadth also helps with what you were talking about in the beginning about finding a new way of life. So can you come back to that and speak a little bit more about recovery and new way of life?
So the way that I view myself, right, what I'm doing is I'm in recovery. And so for me, we have the saying in recovery that any addict can use, desire, to lose and find a new way of life. And so that new way of life has always been something that was interesting to me, right? Is it what is a new way of life? And I think in essence, just a new way of life is a new path.
Hmm.
Right? If somebody's been, out of jail for a really long time and they're just looking for a new way, like a new career, they're trying to get reskilled. Maybe they were doing carpentry and then, like you talk about, you do solar installation. So now they're looking to add solar installation to their repertoire of, like, this is what we do to be successful. So I think those are the things that I see this program as being that vehicle to that new path that they can move forward on to get their education.
Thank you for that. Thank you for
You're
that.
welcome.
One of the things that I also want to tap into with you is how you want to be remembered in with everything that you've done for all the folks that have come through and met you. And I know you probably changed thousands of lives, but I also want to key in on what you want to be remembered by. And with Instructor's Legacy, that's really my aim for these conversations, is not only to be able to extract some of your best advice for folks that are following in your path, but also to give you an opportunity to talk about how you want to be remembered.
I think if you were, it's funny because they say, right, like when you're born and when you die are not the most important things, but it's the dash in between them.
Mhm.
What did you do? And I think if I want to be remembered in a specific way, I think it was that I helped. That I wasn't, that I wasn't just in it for myself, that I was in it to make an impact so that others can make an impact. A lot of people want to be remembered, right? They invented this, they wrote that. I think it's really important for me to just understand that it's really about what you give back as you have received. And I think that's what I really would like to remember, that, what, I gave back almost as much as I received, and really just looking forward to paying back everything that was done for me. So in essence, right, like if they could sum up, what I did, man, is I was people's fan club, right? I was there to cheer people on. I was there to encourage people. I was there to support people, help people, pass on knowledge. I don't want to be remembered as a gatekeeper. I don't want to be remembered, he had an ego, or I don't want to be remembered as a hindrance, but I want to be remembered as, like, the person that supported and helped and empowered others, right, to make a good difference.
I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. Joe Louis, where can I send folks to find you?
So you can have them Google Mount SAC Rising Scholars, and they can find me through Mount SAC Rising Scholars, or they can look up my LinkedIn, Joe Louis Hernandez, or they can search me up on Instagram at Streetwise Scholar.
Thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate you.
You're
Thanks.
welcome. Thank you.